In the small town of Echo, as the sun began to rise, painting the sky with warm hues of orange and pink, something unusual was happening. In a dirty drainage ditch by the roadside, a man stared. His name was Chidi, though at the moment he couldn't remember it. He woke with a sharp, throbbing pain in his head that made him wince. Chidi sat up slowly, his hand going to his forehead. He felt dizzy and confused. Looking around, he tried to make sense of his surroundings, but nothing seemed familiar. The streets, the buildings, even the air felt strange. He struggled to remember how he got there, but his mind was foggy. The only memories he could clearly recall were from his childhood, up until he was about 15 years old. Standing up on shaky legs, Chidi dusted off his clothes. They were nice clothes. He noticed, though, now they were dirty and wrinkled. He began to walk aimlessly, hoping something would jog his memory. As he wandered, the sun climbed higher in the sky, and more people appeared on the streets. Chidi started to recognize some areas, but they looked different from what he remembered. This puzzled him greatly. "I was just here last evening," he muttered to himself. "I was walking Amaka home. We held hands and laughed under the street lights. How could everything change so quickly?" Feeling increasingly anxious, Chidi decided to head home. Surely his parents would be worried sick about him. He quickened his pace, turning down familiar streets until he reached his house. But when he got there, his confusion only grew. Strangers were in his house. A woman he did not recognize was sweeping the porch, while children he had never seen played in the yard. Chidi approached, trying to enter what he thought was his house. "Excuse me," the woman said, looking at him suspiciously. "Can we help you?" Chidi was taken aback. "This is my house," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "Who are you? What are you doing in my house?" The woman's face hardened. She called for her husband, and soon Chidi found himself surrounded by angry people who thought he was trying to break in. They chased him off the property, yelling and threatening to call the police. Chidi ran away, his heart pounding. He couldn't understand what was happening. Why didn't anyone recognize him? Why were strangers living in his house? As he fled, he noticed people on the street staring at him. Some whispered to each other, pointing in his direction. Chidi realized he must look strange. A well-dressed man acting so confused and desperate. As the day wore on, Chidi's headache got worse. He visited his old school, but no one there knew him either. When he entered his old classroom, the teacher asked if he needed help. Looking at him with a mixture of concern and weariness, Everywhere he went, people reacted the same way, surprised by his appearance but put off by his behavior. Hungry and tired, Chidi made his way to the market. He hoped to find his mother's small shop, thinking maybe she could explain what was going on. But when he got there, different people were running the store. Dejected, he turned to leave. That's when he saw her, a familiar face in the crowd. It was Amaka, his girlfriend. She looked different, older, more sophisticated, but he would recognize her anywhere. His heart leaped with joy and relief. "My love," he called out, "my love." But Amaka didn't respond. She kept walking, not even turning her head. Chidi ran towards her, still calling out. When he reached her, he hugged her from behind, so happy to see a familiar face. But Amaka's reaction wasn't what he expected. She jumped and screamed, pushing him away. Before Chidi could explain, she ran off as fast as she could, leaving him standing there shocked and hurt. People around the market stared at Chidi, murmuring to each other. Some looked afraid, others disgusted. Chidi walked away, his head spinning with questions. Why did Amaka run from him? Why did she look so different? What was happening to him? As night fell, Chidi realized he had nowhere to go. His head was pounding worse than ever. With no other option, he found a quiet spot in the gutters and lay down next to some street children. Even they looked at him strangely, wondering why a man in nice clothes was sleeping on the street. But they were also too tired also to pay much attention to him. Days passed and Chidi's appearance began to match his circumstances. His clothes became dirty and torn, his hair matted, his face grimy. He was hungry all the time, and the constant headaches made it hard to think clearly. In desperation, he decided to try going home one more time as before. He was chased away, but this time, as he ran out of the compound, he saw Amaka again. Hope flared in his chest. My love," he called out. Amaka turned to run, but then Chidi shouted her name. She stopped in her tracks, a look of surprise on her face. Slowly, she turned back towards him. Amaka walked cautiously towards Chidi, studying his face. "How do you know my name?" she asked. Chidi's words tumbled out in a rush. "It's me, Chidi. We were together just a few days ago. I walked you home and we said goodnight under the moonlight. Don't you remember?" Amaka's expression changed from worriness to concern as Chidi spoke. The more he said, the more she realized something was very wrong. He was talking like a teenager, but he was clearly a grown man. And the things he was describing, they had happened over 10 years ago. The same year Chidi and his family had left Eko to pursue opportunities in the big city. Looking closer, Amaka noticed a large lump on Chidi's head. It looked painful, like he had hit himself hard on something, or someone had hit him. She tried asking him a few questions about where he was staying and what had happened to him, but his answers only confused her more. He seemed genuinely convinced that they were still teenagers and that no time had passed. Finally, Amaka made a decision. "Come with me," she said gently. Taking Chidi's arm, she led him to her parents' house, where her family reacted with shock at the sight of a disheveled man. Amaka quickly explained the situation to her parents and siblings. As she spoke, recognition dawned on their faces. They remembered Chidi and his family from years ago, though all they knew was that family had left for the big city and never been heard from again. Despite their initial reservations, Amaka's family agreed to help. They prepared a bath for Chidi and gave him some of her brother's clothes to wear. They tried asking him more questions, but it was clear his memory was stuck in the past. He couldn't remember anything after the age of 15. The next day, they took Chidi to the local hospital. The doctor examined him and did an X-ray, which revealed that Chidi had suffered a severe concussion. This explained the headaches and memory loss. However, the doctor said they would need to go to a bigger hospital in the city for more thorough tests and treatment. Since it was almost Christmas, Amaka and her family decided to take care of Chidi until the holidays. Throughout this time, Chidi continued to act as if Amaka was still his girlfriend. To avoid confusing or upsetting him further, Amaka played along, treating him with kindness and patience. They celebrated Christmas together, with Chidi joining in the festivals, but often looking lost or confused. He would sometimes walk past his old home, staring at it longingly, but never daring to approach after his previous experiences. As the New Year celebrations came and went, it was time for Amaka to return to the big city, where she worked as a lawyer. She decided to take Chidi with her, hoping to get him the medical help he needed. The journey to the city was long, but Chidi seemed to enjoy it. He spent most of the trip talking about things they had done when they were young, as if they had happened just days ago. Amaka listened patiently, her heart heavy with the realization of how much Chidi had lost. When they arrived at Amaka's beautiful apartment in the city, Chidi looked around in awe. Amaka showed him the guest room where he would be staying. They had a quiet dinner together before retiring for the night, both exhausted from the long journey. The next morning, Amaka took Chidi to one of the city's best hospitals. The doctors there suggested an MRI and CT scans. After examining the results, they advised that Chidi needed an operation as soon as possible to address the injury to his brain. On the day of the operation, Amaka accompanied Chidi to the hospital. She waited anxiously as the surgery, which took 7 hours, was performed. Afterwards, the doctors told her that Chidi would be kept in an induced coma for a while his brain healed. Days passed, and finally Chidi opened his eyes. Amaka, who had been sitting by his bedside, felt a surge of excitement. But when Chidi saw her, he looked surprised and confused. "Where am I?" he asked. "What happened?" Amaka, following the doctor's advice, told him to rest and assured him they would talk later. Once Chidi had stabilized and the doctors gave their approval, Amaka sat down with him to explain everything that had happened since they met in Echo. As Amaka spoke, she could see the change in Chidi's face. His eyes widened, and he sat up suddenly, a look of shock spreading across his features. Memories were flooding back, filling in the gaps of the lost years. Chidi looked at Amaka with a strange expression. Amaka could tell that Chidi was finally understanding everything that had happened. He remembered all the funny things he did when he couldn't remember who he was. Chidi felt very embarrassed. "I'm sorry for causing you so much trouble," Chidi said softly, "but I'm really happy to see you after such a long time." Suddenly, Chidi's face became sad. He remembered the bad thing that happened to him, which made him end up in the dirty water. At Chidi's parents' house, his mother had been crying every day since Chidi went missing. She was very worried about her son. One afternoon, Chidi's best friend, Amaka, ran into their house. He was out of breath and shouted. They found Chidi's car. It was left on the road outside the city. His phone was in the car, and they called the last number he dialed. That's how I found out. I told the police, and they're going there now. Chidi's parents asked Amaka to take them to where the car was. They were thankful that Chidi had such a good friend. When they got there, they saw Chidi's empty car. The police had put tape around it and were looking for clues. Chidi's parents had to go back home and wait for news. Chidi's mother was very upset because Chidi was her only child. He was supposed to take over the big company they had built. They loved him so much. After Chidi was born, his mother had a problem. That meant she couldn't have any more babies. Chidi's parents were happy that their son had such a good friend in Amaka. They treated him like their own child since they were in university. When they packed food for Chidi, they always packed extra for Amaka too. After they finished school, Chidi started working at his parents' company. His father was getting ready to stop working, and they were teaching Chidi how to run the company. Amaka had trouble finding a job, so Chidi asked his parents to give Amaka a job. They paid him well because they thought of him as a son, and he had to help his own parents who depended on him. But Amaka had a secret. He was jealous of Chidi. Chidi had everything he didn't have: rich and loving parents, money, a great job in his parents' company, a nice house, and a pretty girlfriend, Adana. Amaka came from a poor family and had to work hard for everything. He was smart like Chidi, which is why they became best friends. They both worked hard in school. Chidi's parents helped Amaka with school amenities when they saw how close he was to their son. Now that Chidi was going to run the family business, Amaka became even more jealous. He started thinking about how he could get all of Chidi's things for himself. He even thought about hurting Chidi. These bad thoughts filled his mind. He was angry that Chidi always got nice things. He couldn't understand why he didn't have the same good luck in life. He was so jealous that he wanted to find a way to take everything Chidi had. Chidi trusted Amaka completely. When Chidi was busy with work meetings, he would ask Amaka to take gifts to Adana. He had introduced Amaka as his own brother. Soon, Amaka started making up stories. One time, he asked Adana to have lunch with him, saying Chidi couldn't come and she would be sad if no one showed up. During lunch, he told her that he was better than Chidi and that he would be the heir to the money because Chidi wasn't good at running the company. Adana started to like Amaka more because she thought he would be rich one day. Amaka even took money from the company to buy nice things for her. Chidi was surprised that Adana stopped complaining about him being busy all the time. He was learning how to run the big company, so he didn't have much free time. He saw Adana when he could, but he noticed she was acting a bit different. He didn't think much about it. Meanwhile, Amaka was getting closer to Adana and was planning to take everything Chidi had. Amaka started making plans of getting rid of Chidi so he could take over the company. Chidi's parents loved and trusted him like their own son. He always acted good and helpful when they were around. One day, Amaka kept asking Chidi about his plans. He wanted to know when Chidi was leaving work and where he was going. Chidi thought Amaka was just being nice. He told him he was going to see Adana because work wasn't so busy now. Chidi left work as he planned. As he was driving to Adana's house, his car suddenly stopped. He tried to start it again, but it wouldn't work. He got out to check what was wrong. He opened the trunk to look inside before he could see anything. He felt a sharp pain in his head. Then everything went black. The next thing Chidi remembered was waking up in the dirty drain. Everything looked blurry. and he couldn't remember what happened or where he was. After hurting Chidi, Emeka went to see Adana. She asked where Chidi was because she was expecting him. Emeka lied and said, "I'll tell you the truth. Chidi has another girlfriend. He's gone on a trip with her now that work isn't so busy." Adana was shocked. She thought Chidi loved her and was always working when he didn't show up. Emeka comforted her and said he would be there for her. Adana tried to call Chidi, but he didn't answer. She slowly started to believe Emeka's story as he kept comforting her. In the days that followed, Emeka got closer to Adana. He told her more lies about Chidi cheating on her. When he was with Chidi's parents, Emeka kept saying he was trying hard to find Chidi. He called the police for updates every so often. Chidi's parents felt lucky to have him helping. He even helped run the business because Chidi's parents were too upset to work. Days turned into weeks, and still no one could find Chidi. The bad men who took Chidi told their boss that they had done what he asked. They said they left Chidi far away and that he would never be seen again. This made the boss very happy. He thought his plans was working. Now he just needed to find a way to make Chidi's parents put him in charge of the company. Back at the hospital, Chidi finished telling Amaka how he ended up in the dirty water. He thought the bad men left him there because they hit his head so hard. They didn't think he would wake up. He was unconscious the whole time they took him from the city to the small town. Amaka asked if Chidi knew who did this to him, but Chidi said he didn't know. The person attacked him from behind, so he couldn't see who it was. "What are you going to do now?" Amaka asked. "You don't know who hurt you." "First, I need to get better and stronger," Chidi said. Amaka took good care of Chidi. They talked a lot about what happened since Chidi moved to the big city with his parents. They enjoyed sharing stories, and it made them remember how much they liked each other when they were younger. But then Chidi told Amaka he had a girlfriend, Adana. Amaka looked sad for the moment, but then she smiled and said she was happy for him. She told Chidi that she hadn't dated anyone for 2 years after she was busy becoming a good lawyer. When Chidi was well enough to leave the hospital, he gave Amaka the address and asked her to get his mother. He didn't want to go home yet in case it wasn't safe. Amaka did what Chidi asked. When she told Chidi's mother the news, she was amazed and excited. Amaka explained who she was, and Chidi's mother remembered her family from their old home in Eko. They quickly went to Amaka's house, where Chidi was waiting. When Chidi saw his mother, They hugged and cried. It was very emotional. Chidi told his mother everything that happened. His mother was worried and wondered who would want to hurt her son. But she was thankful he was alive and thanked Amaka for taking care of him. Chidi's mother went home and they planned to go to the police the next day. Amaka said she would go with them and give legal advice since she was a lawyer. When Chidi's mother got home, she told Chidi's father the good news. He was so relieved to hear that Chidi was alive. Early the next morning, Chidi and Amaka left to go to the police. But first, Chidi wanted to stop at Adana's house. He thought she must have been worried about him. When Chidi knocked on Adana's door, Amaka opened it. He was wearing a vest on showing some of his muscles. Chidi was shocked and asked, "What are you doing here?" Before Amaka could answer, Adana came to the door and surprisingly wearing Amaka's shirt. She was surprised and shocked to see Chidi at her door. Chidi couldn't speak. He turned around and left quickly. He couldn't believe what he had just seen. He walked briskly and in shock to the car, asking himself what he had just witnessed. Amaka asked Chidi what happened, but he was too upset to talk. He just asked her to drive to his parents' house. When they got there, Chidi's parents were talking. His father was so happy to see his son. They told Chidi that the police were coming with some news. Chidi's parents sat down, feeling nervous about what the police would say. Chidi and Amaka waited in another room to see what would happen. 2 policemen arrived with a man in handcuffs. The police explained that they caught this man who was connected to Chidi's disappearance. The man had been drinking and spending money he got from hurting Chidi. He talked about it in public, and someone told the police. They were talking, Amaka ran in, followed by Adana. Amaka was shocked to see the man in handcuffs. Before he could say anything, Chidi and Amaka walked in the room too. This surprised everyone, especially the man in handcuffs and the police. Amaka had followed Chidi to explain why he was at Adana's house, but when he saw what was happening, he couldn't speak. The police looked at Chidi, surprised to see him alive. They then pointed at Amaka and said he was the one who planned everything. Everyone was shocked. Chidi and his parents couldn't believe that someone they treated like family could do such a terrible thing. Adana realized she had made a big mistake. She now knew that the man she thought would get all of Chidi's money was just Chidi's friend after all. She tried to say sorry to Chidi, but Chidi was too hurt to listen. The police arrested Amaka. They found out more bad things he had done, like taking money from the company to buy expensive things. It took Chidi a long time to feel better after Amaka and Adana had betrayed him. Adana tries to get back together with him, but Chidi ended the relationship. Amaka stayed by Chidi's side through everything. Their friendship grew stronger and stronger. Weeks turned into months. Chidi started to feel like himself again. He went back to running the company. He and Amaka often went out for lunch or dinner. They really enjoyed spending time together. One cool afternoon, Chidi invited Amaka for a walk in the park. The sun was shining and the birds were singing in the trees. They walked on the soft grass, holding hands. Chidi stopped under a big tree and looked into Amaka's eyes. "Amaka," he said, "you've been so kind to me. Will you be my girlfriend?" Amaka couldn't believe what she was hearing. She thought Chidi would never ask. She smiled big and said, "Yes, Chidi, I would love to be your girlfriend." Chidi was so happy that he picked Amaka up and spun her around. They both laughed and hugged each other. That evening, Chidi told his mother about him and Amaka. His mother was very happy. She knew Amaka and her family liked them very much. She started thinking about how beautiful Chidi and Amaka's wedding would be. She imagined a big celebration with colorful decorations, lots of dancing, and delicious Nigerian food. She could almost smell the jollof rice and hear the traditional drums playing. Chidi's mother was also excited about having grandchildren. She couldn't wait to hold a little baby in her arms and teach them about their culture. She thought about how she would tell them stories and cook special meals for them. She started thinking of ways to help Chidi and Amaka get married soon. She wanted to see her son happy and settled. The end. The moral to this story is that it teaches us two important things. Number one, be careful who you trust. Sometimes the people who seem to be like good friends can be jealous or want to hurt you. It's important to pay attention to how people act, not just what they say. Real friends will be happy for your success and won't try to take what's yours. Number two, good things can come from bad situations. Chidi went through a very hard time, but in the end, he found true love and friendship with Amaka. Sometimes the best things in life happen after something bad. Don't give up hope when things are tough, because better days might be just around the corner. Well, besties, thank you for watching. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed it, and please do subscribe because I would like to see you here again. Also remember to share with your family and friends. See you in the next video. Bye.